Okay. What's up? Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, my name is Forgotten, and growing up in the information security community. So, obviously, I'm going to talk about who I am, what is the community, and different ways to get involved. So, I currently run an allocated space at Hackerspaces in Maryland, right near BWI Airport. I graduated from college, didn't get much from it, but I had fun anyway. Got heavily involved in Capture the Flag, which I'll get into a little more later, and started documenting Capture the Flag competitions because no one else really did. And then started creating my own CTF. About 6 months ago, we did one in Maryland, both online and on-site. And then I'm part of a project with a group called Cyberwatch that does a lot of information security education. And they got as part of their tasks to create a National Cybersecurity Student Association. Terrible name, but the idea of it is to connect together information security students for information sharing. College itself has a huge issue right now in that you can go through college and still not be able to do anything useful. This is true of a lot of fields, but they're starting to realize that Capture the Flag is a way to get that real-world experience and the knowledge to actually do something useful when they leave school to all the students, not just the ones that are lucky enough to get themselves an internship. So with Capture the Flags, clubs started to form more heavily and much more information sharing is going on. That is the goal of the student association, is to link those clubs, link those students together in one spot to share resources. So, how I got started. When I was younger, I loved to figure out how shit works. So, How Stuff Works, the website, really was awesome. Worked with a friend of the family for quite a while doing help desk shit. It wasn't fun. Went to a community college that actually worked out really well because that got me into information security. Found some local groups like Linux Users Group and some other groups to participate in, then found the Hackerspace. Started an internship like everybody else. You get a good spot. Started getting into competitions because that was a great way to learn really quickly. And then started the competition wiki and actually took over running an allocated space and crazy other projects. And if you haven't gone to see Trunk Monkey, it is well worth the time. So what is the community? In my mind, community is made up out of a couple of different things. Makerspaces and Hackerspaces. Anybody who, first of all, is anyone a member of a Hackerspace in this room? No? Well, so be it. Hackerspaces and Makerspaces provide a great location for people to work on projects. While it's nice to work in your garage, sometimes that isn't possible, especially if you have an apartment or something like that. So the idea of a space that's community-oriented that you can sit down in and work on a project and go take apart a full desktop and lay it all over the table and work on stuff is great. Also, you can build crazy things, which we'll get into later. And in some hackerspaces, you get into strange and interesting dinner arrangements that end up in fried wasabi balls, which got someone their nickname. Conferences. Obviously, you're here, so you've taken that step. Conferences are a great way to meet a lot of people in information security, as well as get jobs and learn a lot of stuff. It's not just all about the talks. There's also going to meet people. There's a lot of people at pretty much every conference you can go to that will actually provide some great experiences and great ways to get involved. Open source projects. There's a lot of projects in information security that are open source that it doesn't matter whether you know everything or nothing, you can still get involved with. Even if it's testing and documentation, literally going in and trying something and making sure it works or cleaning up documentation is a great way to get your name out there and get started in the community. And I can tell you pretty much every open source project documentation is mostly awful. And pretty much every open source project could use help with that. So if you're looking to get started, documentation may not be fun and exciting, but it is a great way to get your name out there and get something on your resume. Local groups, there's tons of groups on all kinds of different subjects, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. Competitions, as I mentioned earlier, are a great way to get more experience and get into the community. So, Hackerspaces, Makerspaces, you can do a variety of projects. This specifically was a Rubens tube, a physics experiment where basically you fill a tube with propane, put a speaker on the end, and as the sound waves move through the tube, through the propane, it pushes air out and creates basically an equalizer out of fire, which I think is awesome. And we've done a variety of things. We have at least at an allocated space, we've got a networking class, we've got electronics classes. We love to play with fire and physics and fluid dynamics, and I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. Explosions, more recently involving pumpkins. If you've heard of pumpkin chunkin, we were out there basically launching pumpkins in a trebuchet, trying to get telemetry data out of a pumpkin, flying through midair. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully next year, air cannons. I don't know how well that's going to work, but firing a pumpkin a mile and trying to get telemetry out of it is an interesting problem. Programming projects, we've got all kinds. We've got a night devoted to actual web development, which is kind of rare, but it is what it is. We also do PyWat, the tool set mentioned in the wireless talks a couple times this weekend. It was actually one of our board members. Security, we have both a tool chapter that we host locally and all kinds of different security things people play with, from hosting a CTF to other things. And not all hackerspaces are quite this involved in information security, but they do exist out there. And we've done a variety of interesting projects. That's someone was trying to take a wheelchair base and make a platform on it, ended up running themselves over. And then left a sign we set up so that IRC could update the hackerspace on what's going on or send messages. More on pumpkin chunkin. These are various categories of pumpkin chunkin. That was a lot of fun to go see, watch people chuck pumpkins in every way you can imagine. We were specifically working with trebuchets, but there's a variety of different ways. To chuck a pumpkin. It was a lot of fun. Probably our most fun, if this video wants to work. Come on. And it won't let me scroll through it all. Awesome. So, and this worked really well on my other laptop, but it may not work as well on this one. And of course, PowerPoint fails at videos. Well, luckily I have the full video here. I'm not even going to try and play it from online. So this was actually another project we did that was actually someone who worked for Boeing, basically sat down and designed, okay, how can we make a tornado out of fire? It was a lot of fun. We've done it about 10 times, and each time it gets better.
You can bring your kids.
Yes, it is kid-friendly. And you can see various people trying to adjust the fans. So basically the fans point towards the center, just off center, and create a rotation around the circle. And you have a lovely 4 or 5 foot fire that turns into a 40 to 50 foot spinning fire. It is just awesome. Yeah. So we've done this in a couple different wash basins and different things. We actually had to get a new one because we burnt a hole in the last wash basin.
This thing is totally awesome in person. It is
Yes, the video doesn't truly do it justice. It is much more fun to watch in person, and you can literally feel the heat from 30 feet away. You can actually take off your jacket in 20-degree weather and just hang out at about 20 feet. You're nice and toasty.
Is there any special considerations for the actual fire itself, or is it all just the placement of the fans?
The material used makes a difference, so we've tried a variety of different fuels. Mix of isopropylene and lighter fluid works the best. Because it's actually carrying the fuel into the air before it fully catches. So conferences. There are two major types of conferences that I kind of categorize things into. One tends to be the more technical, in-depth conferences where you actually get into breaking stuff, building stuff. Chunkin is an awesome example. January, February, SummerCon in New York, DEF CON and bsidesde Las Vegas, DerbyCon, and obviously here. Some more policy or business-oriented cons tend to be a lot more expensive, and they do get into technical details, but a lot of it is presented in a way that's a lot more friendly to less technical people as well. And list of a few of them. There's a much greater list on secor.info, SECORE.info. And as you've seen downstairs, conferences have a variety of contests. This is specifically Barcode Schmarcode from a couple years ago, where somebody actually put their barcode to get into the conference on a cake. Yes, it was. So in this, Chunkin actually has one of the most difficult barcodes to get when you're first getting started in the community because it is truly random. You hit F5 at the right time and you hope you win the lottery, pretty much. As you get more involved in the community and get on different mailing lists and talk to a lot more people, people tend to have extras that you can get a hold of. Matter of fact, some people actually have a hard time getting rid of them, which is scary. But this particular competition, you can actually win free entry to the conference by coming up with the most unique way to display your barcode, which is a really cool idea. You can see somebody put it on a Jaeger bottle, someone put it on a piece of meat. I don't know if I'd eat that at this point, but and then obviously the cake, I think, is the most awesome. Open source projects. As I said, these always need help, no matter whether you're an expert or just getting started. Open source projects are guaranteed to appreciate any help you're willing to give. There's lots of them out there. Google, Android, and SourceForge have hundreds in each. They have huge repositories of them. Linux itself is an open source project. A lot of students I talk to in computer science tell me they want to design games. Most of them don't last there, but always suggest people game mods because that's a really easy way to get started. Documentation and wikis, they tend to be open source projects and always an opportunity for people to get started, especially at beginner level. Browser extensions, they're pretty simple, but they provide a great opportunity. The CTF wiki, I always need help with that, and I'm always looking for people to volunteer. I actually have an open offer on the website. Anybody who contributes a page worth of information, come see me at the next con and I'll buy you a beer. So it's an easy way to get your name out there. Also, if you have your own project, it's an easy way to get your code reviewed and get assistance from other people in the community. Local groups. There's a variety of local groups pretty much all over the country in every major city that you can use to get involved with. DEF CON has its own set of groups that are all over the country and actually all over the world. There's CitySec type meetups. CharmSec is the Baltimore version. Basically within major cities, basically meet up at a bar and talk to other security professionals. It's a great way to talk to people and just hang out and get to know who else in your area is interested in security and what they're doing. It'd be a great place to get a job. I've gotten one off of CharmSec. 2600, depending on the area, also has meetups. Hackerspaces, as I said, provide a great opportunity to meet various people in the community and get involved. League of Professional Sysadmins, one I didn't know of until recently. I know the Maryland one is Krabby Admins. It's their name, rather ironic. But sysadmins tend to be kind of the backbone system operators who really know their stuff in Windows and Linux and Mac, various systems. So it's a great place to get started because you get that experience in the operating systems. OWASP, if you're more interested in web applications, OWASP is a great opportunity to get involved with that, and they have a variety of projects as well. We just had a presentation down at the local Hackerspace this week on broken web apps, which is basically a VM that holds, I think, 40 or 50 different web apps designed to help people try out different pen testing techniques for web apps. And then the ability to go through and patch the vulnerabilities and fix them, break them. User groups. Depending on what tools you use, there's a user group for a lot of different things. So for example, VMware has a user group all over the place. They're very useful. It's very good to be able to meet the engineers from those user groups. Linux users groups are another good place to find security folks since we tend to love Linux comparably to Windows. Meetup.com has tons of different groups out there that Meetup.com kind of hosts a repository of different meetups, so that'd be a great place to find different clubs and different organizations in your area. And a lot of colleges have security clubs, especially as the CTF community in colleges grow, to fill that void of practical experience. Competitions, which my favorite part, provide an opportunity to play and really get skills. There's a variety of different types of competitions. So there are attack competitions, defense competitions, combinations of the two. There's also Jeopardy style, which is more of a Jeopardy board, and you take questions from various categories and you try and solve them. There's also combinations of that. Forensics competitions. Some are online, some are on site. So Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition is a defensive competition specific to college students. But they also have a lot of pen testers and other people who are involved, forensics folks, who are involved at different aspects as volunteers to basically watch the students try and defend systems from a group of professionals. Normally it is a bloody mess. It is chaos, but it is a lot of fun. All the students who play learn something out of it. A lot of these competitions tend to be international as well. It's not limited to the US. RUCTF is actually Russian. The main competition is limited to, I believe, Russian high school and college students, but RUCTFE is extended, so they'll allow US competitors to play. National Cyber League is another college competition that's going on right now. DoD Cybercrime Center's DC3 Challenge. This actually came in at Jeopardy, and I believe they're looking for private funding for next year. This is basically the only forensics competition out there that's run every year that I'm aware of. Sadly, they may not be able to run next year if they don't get a sponsor. MITRE hosts their own for both training their interns as well as any high school and college students. A lot of companies are starting to use CTFs as an opportunity for both training their employees and their interns and testing their abilities, and both to help out the community. NYU Poly puts one on for Computer Security Awareness Week. I think last year there were 1,200 teams this past year. It is student run, so that is just students organizing a capture the flag with 1,200 teams online. Talking about some massive competitions. At various conferences, there's competitions like the one downstairs for the wireless CTF. Ghost in the Shell Code at Chunkin is a more assembly-heavy competition. OCTF at DEF CON is another competition. It's out there. US Cyber Challenge. It's another college one. Basically, there's 4 quizzes a year, and the quizzes are kind of not fun, but there's one specific quiz in April that if you take and you do well on, you are given free access to a training camp that's a week long. It's 4 one-day versions of SANS classes, and then a CTF on Friday, 100% free. So, let me say that again. 4 one-day SANS classes that typically, for the 5-day version, cost thousands for free. So that's definitely a great opportunity. I believe that's actually open to a lot of different groups. I don't know how restrictive they are on that at all. There's a lot of web-based challenges that are just open to anyone. Halls of Valhalla is one site that hosts probably 150 challenges in a variety of different categories, between SQL injection, web exploitation, reverse engineering, forensics, steganography, all kinds of different subjects that you can really get involved with depending on your area of interest in information security. And then there's tons of local ones that it's almost impossible for me to find out about unless they're in my area, because I can only search but so much. Try and post everything on my website, which is there at the bottom, ctf.forgottensec.com. IRC. IRC is another opportunity for finding folks to get involved with projects. In a lot of cases, you can only find support for certain products in IRC. So, for example, Snort, there's no open source support for that. There's a user group or forums that they kind of killed off. Pretty much the only way you can ask questions is on the developer mailing list or in the Snort channel on Freenode. Double hashtag security has probably, I think, 200 people on average just sitting in there, a bunch of security folks chatting. IRC can be very harsh if you ask a question they don't feel is useful, but they can also be a great opportunity to really meet some interesting folks and get some answers to questions. One I didn't have on here was the Kali channel. Backtrack, there's channels for all kinds of stuff. A lot of college security clubs have channels, a lot of competitions have their own channels. A lot of different projects have their own channels. Snort is only one example. Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition has its own channel. There's tons and tons and tons of channels. They're not always easy to find, but if you look on the website for a project, generally you'll find the IRC channel somewhere buried, because that's generally the only way you can get support for a lot of open source projects. But on the flip side, you can also contact directly the developers in a lot of cases. So for example, you can get directly to the folks who are actually developing Snort by heading in their channel and asking a question, which in a lot of corporate projects you have to go through more support that sometimes doesn't know anything. So it's a double-edged sword. It can be really good or it can be really useless depending on who you talk to. So the community is all about giving back and learning and having fun. Please go to Hackerspaces, participate in open source projects, go to the groups, participate in the competitions. They really provide the opportunity to get a career off the ground in information security and grow your skills. So, again, here's my website. I'm on Twitter. I talk to a lot of people on Twitter. Does anyone have any questions? and a little early. Oops. So, and that's all I got. Sorry.